chapter 27, himself. He comes to the end of the alley. He goes down the street, up another alley, sucking on the bubblegum stone, keeping it warm. He blows on his fingers. He looks up. He can no longer feel the flakes on his face except on his lips. He wishes he could see the stars. He still thinks of them as his stars. He remembers one of his earliest beliefs that a number of stars fell to earth each day so that mothers could go about gathering them for their children's shirts. He wishes he still believed it. He stops, faces full to the sky. He closes his eyes, feels the flakes on his eyelids, cold ash of dying stars. He wants to stop. He wants to go to sleep. He thinks of his bed. He pictures himself in his pajamas. No, first he pictures himself in the bathtub. He has been taking showers because he's big now, but for this one more time, he wants the bath. He lets the water run, and his mother doesn't call up, "Donald, that's enough! Turn it off!" Not this time. He lets the warm water rise all the way to his belly button before he turns it off. Then he slinks down into the steamy, everlasting warmness, only his head showing above. And then into bed under the covers, curled up, shivering, not from cold, but from delight, giggling under his soft, warm mountain of covers. He stumbles over something, goes lurching into a chain-link fence. The fence rattles, then spills its dislodged snow with the sound like breath going out. He yells, he screams down the trench of blackness, "Claudia!" Silence. Surprisingly, the top of his head is not cold. His hair is thick, and the snow that falls upon it keeps getting shaken off by his repeated stumbles and fallings. But his ears, they are freezing. The crest of his ears are so cold they feel as if they're burning. He muffs them with his hands, but his hands are as cold as his ears. He's going to get hollered at good when he gets home. His mother's always yelling at him not to go out in the weather like this without a hat. She's going to say, "Heaven help me," at least 50 times. He thinks of the waiting man. He wonders if the waiting man ever thought of going over to Vietnam and looking for his brother himself. And then it occurs to him, maybe he did. Maybe he did go over there as soon as he heard his brother was missing in action. Maybe he figured he was the best one to go looking for his own brother, and maybe he went tramping up and down the jungle till his shoes wore out. And maybe he was on his second or third pair of shoes when they kicked him out because it was their jungle and not his. And so that's why he came back to the window. He had no choice. And he sees the front window of Claudia's home, across the street from the waiting man. And he sees Claudia's mother. Hears a voice from the future. "Yeah, it's a shame. One night during a snowstorm, the little girl ran off. Used to wear a harness, just took it off. Whole town came out looking for her, even the Zinkoff kid. They looked and looked, turned this town upside down, never could find her. Now look, her mother sits in that window waiting for her little girl to come home. Been waiting there for over 30 years. He bites down hard on his lucky stone. "Claudia!" Now, don't get disparaged, boys and girls. That was a thought that he was thinking. Remember, he was kind of comparing his search for Claudia to the waiting man's search for his brother. So he's kind of comparing the two and seeing what would happen in the future. He comes to the end of this second alley and finds a third, and comes to the end of that and finds another. Before one turn, he sees red and white spinning lights in the distance. He no longer wants to scold them for looking in the wrong places. Seeing the lights makes him feel good now, makes him feel part of a team as he heads down the next alleyway. He hasn't noticed, but the back house lights have gone out along the way, the kitchens and bedrooms. He does notice, however, that something is different. Noise. The snow has become noisy. a vast brushy noise all about him as of a broom sweeping. He lifts his face. He feels tiny prickles on his skin. It's not snow, but it's rain. Within minutes, the soft sweeping sound has become a chittering, as if someone above is sprinkling salt on the world. His footsteps crunch. He reaches down. The top of the snow has become crusty, slick and cold and crusty. Just wonder why the author put two crusties in there, but maybe if I read it like this, it would make more sense. The top of the snow has become crusty, slick and cold and crusty. See how the author did that? So at first, the author said crusty, right? But then the author put in slick and cold and crusty. It's not just crusty, but slick and cold crusty. So for emphasis, the author put that at the end of the first crusty rather than just, he could have just said crusty, that it was slick and cold crusty right at the beginning, but for emphasis. So that's kind of an interesting way that authors sometimes do that to make things stand out a little bit. The top of the snow has become crusty, slick and cold and crusty. Not good for making snow angels. He should have made a snow angel before the snow got crusty. He wonders if Claudia is making snow angels. He wonders if angels are invisible in the snow. He wonders if angels make people in the snow. He wonders if Claudia is an angel. The tiny grains of ice have turned to freezing rain that pelts his face and runs down his neck and into his shoulders and wakes him up, which is quite a surprise since he didn't know he had gone to sleep in the first place. But here he is, lying, not standing in the snow. He tries to push himself up, but his hand breaks through the crust and snow like cold cotton runs up inside his coat arm past his elbow. He jumps up. He flaps his arms violently to shake out the snow. The snow falls out, but try to get his icicle of an arm to believe it. He trundles onward. His head is soaking wet. He's taking a shower. Hey, Mom, I'm taking a shower. Does he say it or think it? He's not sure. He's not sure of a lot of things anymore. Things seem to be blending, differences disappearing. He is no longer sure where he ends and the snow begins. Snow is him. Cold is him. Night is him. He knows himself only by the stone in his mouth, the last faintly glowing ember of what used to be Zinkoff. He clamps the stone in his teeth, covers it with his tongue. He stomps once through the crust, trying to shake the rest of himself loose from the night. He stomps again and barks into the night, "Claudia!" Now she's made him mad. Wait till I get a hold of you. A gleam of light, a distant voice, a funny siren sounds like a hiccup. He calls, "I'm looking here. You look there. We'll find her." Or does he just think he calls? He reminds himself. It actually says, that wasn't Mr. Duncan making a mistake. It says, he reminds himself, reminds himself, because remember, he's so delirious now that he's thinking that there's like two of him. He reminds himself, Claudia's mother, the waiting man. One waiter is enough. There will be no more waiters on the 900 block of Willow, period, he says out loud and falls asleep. He's still walking, but he's asleep as surely as any of those people behind the back house windows. And why not? It's so easy when you are the night and the night is you and you're down to the last stone in your mouth and there's nothing to see anyway. It's all black. So where's the difference between an eye open and an eye closed? Until you walk into a garage door. He bounces rudely off the door and falls on his back into the snow. He's up and slogging onward, turned around now in the confusion and heading back the way he came. "Claudia!" Walking, thud, thud, slush, slush. "Oh, mailman!" He looks up, he smiles. "Come on in," she says, and he goes in. And what a wonderful surprise. It's hot chocolate time. There's his old Winnie the Pooh mug from when he was little. She pours in hot chocolate, all foamy and steaming, and then comes the best part, the Cool Whip. She scoops some on, but not enough, never enough, because it's his mother now, and she's playing the game. She's waiting for him to say more. So he says it, and she piles on more, and he has to practically sink his whole face into the Cool Whip to get down to the hot chocolate, and it's heaven, it's a car. He has sleepwalked into a street and onto a parked car. He trundles on. He thinks he's in an alley, but he's in the middle of a street. He hears a squawk, a hiccup siren. He sees a flashing light, red, blue. He's glad they're still out looking for her. He thinks they will find her first. The rain is coming down harder now. He can hear it. The sound is so much louder. He squints. He tries to see the rain in the street light, but he cannot seem to focus. He holds out his hand. He tries to look at it, but his hand will not stay still. He looks up. Nothing falls on his face. The rain has stopped. The snow has stopped. If not the rain, what is that noise? It's himself. It's his teeth. They're chattering, rattling worse than Clunker 9, shaking like his hand, like the whole body, the lucky stone dancing in his mouth. Zinkoff is cold, pretending to be warm. He pretends he's his dad. With every step he says, "Piece of cake, piece of cake." He lurches into another car. He punches himself to stay awake. He stomps. He can't feel his toes. Who took his toes? He sings. Somebody took my toes. He sings, Claudia, oh Claudia. He must stay awake, must find her. No more waiting. He spells his favorite word. He calls it out loud to the chit-chattering night. Tintinabulation. He sings it, tintinabulation. He hears Claudia calling. She's on Half Tank Hill. She's on his sled, on his back, and they're sailing down the hill, and she's screaming. She's Polly, sitting on his dad's shoulder, screaming, "Go, Donald, go, Donald." This is like a dream, right? Where when you dream stuff, you go in and out, people change, you know. It's exactly like a dream. And he blazes like the wind down the sidewalk, racing the cars, beating them to the end of the block. And the Z shall be first, declares Mr. Yalowitz. And the Z shall be last, declares Mrs. Biswell. And the waiting man winks in the window and says, "Pass me a snickerdoodle." Yellow button, what do you say? "Get off my team," says the yellow button. 1,000 congratulations. Give me a T, give me an I, give me an N. What do you got? Candles. Get your candles here. Genuine earwax candles here. 2,160 congratulations apiece. 2,160, 2,100. All aboard, all aboard. Next stop, Jabip, Jabip, Jabip. Good morning, young citizens. Good morning, good morning. Heaven help me, heaven help me. Wow, that's a lot of stuff. Remember, he's going back through his whole life so far about his teachers. The lights are blinding him. The lights are rumbling. He knows that he must turn away. He must get to the alley. He must find Claudia, but he cannot get away from the lights. He cannot move. And a whistle is screaming and a voice is saying, "Hold on, son, I gotcha."